the Aural community, and particularly James Griffiths. I wanted to do a response to James's 100 subs contest for musical connections to friends, which was pretty easy for me. I have 3 particular friends who I'd like to shout out in this one. The first one being my friend Jeff, or Alan. Been my friend since middle school. And the album I definitely connect with Jeff, or Alan, is The Beatles' Let It Be. So when I met Jeff, I'm just going to call him Jeff in this video for simplicity's purposes. He goes by his middle name, but I knew him as Jeff back then. He was the hardcore Beatles fan. And he played this album a lot. But in particular this album, because we went to see the film of the movie, we went to see the film Let It Be. I only knew about the Beatles from what I heard, Jeff play. And this album, I don't know if I owned it. I think I probably owned this at one point. But we went to the movie. It was Jeff and I and another friend who I can't remember. Maybe Jeff remembers. But we went to see the movie. It was like playing, we lived at the time in Ann Arbor. And it was playing at the Michigan campus. And so we went to see it, and we were sitting like towards the back in this theater. And we were singing the songs along with the movie. And people, rows in ahead of us kept turning around looking at us and basically like, shut up, we're trying to listen to the Beatles, not you, or whatever. But we were totally into it, and watching how the movie, the filming of all this stuff, and it was cool to, see them doing the rooftop concert and playing it. So this particular album always reminds me of Jeff, and that particular evening, I think we watched, I think it was a 2-movie bill. I think that we watched Magical Mystery Tour or Help or something like that too, but that movie for sure. The magic of editing. Okay, so friend number 2, Paul Beck. Now, Paul and I met at UW Milwaukee, where I went to school for a while. And we got to know each other through a mutual friend, and then started hanging out and listening to music. And then I moved off campus, and I had rented a room in the house, just a few blocks off campus. So he would come by, and we'd listen to music, and he went back home during one of the holidays, and he brought back with him like his entire music collection, all his tapes and everything. He was totally into early AC/DC, which I didn't really know anything about. And I got into AC/DC on at Highway to Hell, and that's about all I ever heard. So he gave me a bunch of old AC/DC to listen to, and I was like, wow, this is really good. I like it. I really liked it. But the thing he really turned me on to was George Thorogood. Okay. What did I say? Oh, sorry. More editing. George Thorogood. I've never really heard George Thorogood before somehow. And he played this album for me, and it totally knocked me out. Moving On Over, Who Do You Love? Which actually I'd heard the Who Do You Love done by Bo Diddley, so I was like, wow, somebody's recovering Bo Diddley. That was kind of crazy. And that same thing heard done by Willie Dixon, so he really tapped into the blues side of me. And here's somebody doing blues, but turning it into pretty heavy rock. Not heavy rock, but straight ahead rock and roll. So yeah, so this one's it. Moving On Over. This is for Paul. In fact, Over here, I have a picture of Paul on the tape cover I made, which is basically a giant compilation of songs that he turned me on to. April Wine, some old REO Speedwagon, and George Thorogood, AC/DC. So that tape is chock full of great stuff. Funny story about Paul. And Paul, if you're out there and you happen to see this, contact me. Because during, actually, Paul ended up working with me at a little mom and pop grocery store on the corner of Oakland and Locust in Milwaukee, called Eastside Foods. And we worked together there, like third shift. It was, that's a whole story in itself. I won't get into. But then he ended up going into the Navy. He enlisted in the Navy, and he sent me letters with pictures of him on the ship, and I almost said boat. Sorry, on the ship, and he had leave one time, and he came by and visited at my mom's place where I was staying at the time, and we asked him to be in the wedding, and he was like, "Oh, I'd love to," and he was totally into it. But then after a while, he's like, "You know what? I have no way of knowing if I'm going to pull a watch that night, and so I need to not, I can't stand up in the wedding, but I'll come, whatever." So, all right, cool. So send invitation, he got it. Day of the wedding, he never showed up. I wrote to him, he didn't write me back. I don't know, I have no idea what happened to him. I've never heard from him again. So, I don't believe I did anything to scare him off or make him mad. So, he must have just got shipped out somewhere, and, I don't know. But, so, Paul Beck, if you're watching, I still love George Thorogood, and find me. So the last friend I'll talk about in musical connection is, of course, Dalton, that I've mentioned many times. And this album in particular, everybody knows this one, Nirvana's Nevermind. Dalton was crazy into Nirvana, of course, and this is actually a 4 LP, I think it's the 20th anniversary. 4 LP, 180 gram vinyl, 40 tracks, 12 unreleased tracks. It's a monster. And this came to me when he passed, and I got his record collection. So this one definitely reminds me of him. Yeah, I remember being in his car and listening to this, and there was invariably at least one Nirvana track on almost every single mixtape he made for me. So, yeah, and he had a ginormous file of bootlegs and everything. I'm sure a million people do, but yeah, there you go. 20th anniversary deluxe edition. So, yeah, so this one reminds me of Dalton. So those three guys, probably the biggest musical influences in my life. Jeff, still around. Hey, Jeff. Paul, wherever you are, give me a call. And Dalton, I know you're watching. So, James, that's my submission. Kind of a newer subscriber to your channel, but just saying hi. Hi to the community as well.